Welcome to NFL Nexus. I'm your host, and today we are unpacking a premium explainer that dives right into the heart of a franchise that is walking a terrifyingly thin line right now. The Chicago Bears are operating with absolutely zero margin for error this offseason. None. When you factor in the crushing weight of Chicago's historic defensive legacy, and you combine that with the rabid, uncompromising expectations of a fan base that is absolutely starved for a championship, the tension becomes completely palpable. We're going to look at a front office that's scrambling in the dark, a defense trying desperately to mask its monumental failures, and an offense frantically trying to build a shield around its young quarterback. The stakes have literally never been higher. The pressure is suffocating. So let's just dive right into this.
Everything changed in a matter of seconds. I want you to just picture the scene for a moment. It's Week 9. The Bears are locked in this brutal trench warfare battle against the Cincinnati Bengals. It's 3rd and long. The defensive line is digging in. They're showing a wide 9 front, ready to just pin their ears back and hunt. The ball is snapped, and then a pop. A single devastating torn Achilles to defensive end Dayo Odeyingbo. In that one isolated moment, as he went down writhing on the turf, the entire reality of the Chicago defensive line shattered into a million unfixable pieces. Just like that, the master plan for the entire season was instantly destroyed.
And that brings us to the chilling realization that's currently echoing through the dimly lit halls of Halas Hall today. Listen carefully to this exact quote from Bears defensive coordinator Dennis Allen. He said, "We have to work with the roster we have up front." Let the gravity of those words really sink in for a second. He is methodically, quietly admitting the most terrifying truth a fan can hear in the bleak winter of the offseason. No elite edge rusher is walking through those doors, no superstar tackle is coming via trade, there is no blockbuster free agency rescue on the horizon. They have been completely abandoned by the open market, and they're just left to piece together a pass rush from the wreckage of their own roster.
Now, I really want you to look closely at this staggering figure. $48 million. I'm going to linger on that immense number because in the modern NFL, this is the kind of capital that is supposed to guarantee outright dominance. This was the massive 3-year contract featuring over $26 million in pure fully guaranteed money handed directly to Dayo Odeyingbo. The vision was grand, right? The plan was to put him opposite of Montez Sweat and just ruthlessly terrorize opposing quarterbacks for the next 3 years. But instead, this multi-million-dollar investment has now been quietly admitted by the franchise as a catastrophic, paralyzing mistake, one that completely haunts their salary cap.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is understanding exactly what $48 million bought the Chicago Bears. Let's break down these cold, hard statistics, frame by frame. 8 games played, just 21 combined tackles, a completely non-existent 1 single sack, and a microscopic 10 total pressures. To put that into perspective for you, in the modern NFL, elite game-wrecking edge rushers will often record 10 pressures in a single Sunday afternoon. For that to be the total output over an agonizing 8-game stretch is, well, it's truly horrific. The brutal contrast between a premium, top-tier paycheck and this disastrously low output is just staggering. It is a total vacuum of production, right where the Bears desperately needed a wrecking ball.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep the failure really goes. Look at the Pro Football Focus edge rusher rankings. On one side, you have the elite tier, the game wreckers who define the Sunday narrative. On the other side, you have Dayo Odeyingbo, ranked 112 out of 115 eligible edge rushers. 112 out of 115. I mean, it forces you to deeply question the fundamental logic behind the initial signing. It wasn't just an overpay. It was a fundamental systemic miscalculation of talent. You can literally feel the crushing weight of this failure dragging down the entire defensive scheme because it's forcing linebackers to blitz more and leaving the secondary hopelessly exposed on the back end. Which makes this next statement almost impossible to process. When confronted by reporters about his glaring lack of production, Odeyingbo actually said, "Everybody wants more sacks, but there are other ways to affect the quarterback that doesn't show up in the stat sheet." He even went on to boldly claim that Coach Johnson would prefer a forced interception over a sack. But the harsh, undeniable reality? Odeyingbo wasn't doing either of those things effectively. He finished his stint with 0 forced interceptions, 0 forced fumbles, and virtually 0 impact. It's a quote that reeks of supreme denial while the ship is actively sinking into the icy depths of Lake Michigan. So let's see how this builds into an unprecedented coaching reaction. Here is the slow,
agonizing, step-by-step humiliation of an elite paid athlete. Step 1. Completely remove Odeyingbo from the primary edge rushing role he was paid $48 million to dominate. Step 2. Relegate him strictly to run defense on early downs. Step 3. Shift him entirely inside for passing situations. Let's talk tactics for a second here. Moving him inside changes absolutely everything. It means shifting from a wide-open, one-on-one rush on the outside right into the claustrophobic nightmare of B-gap assignments, where he is instantly swallowed whole by 600 pounds of double-teaming offensive guards. Dennis Allen is frantically trying to salvage this sunken cost by just hiding him inside.
But here's the thing. Hiding your $48 million mistake inside the trenches creates a gaping void on the outside edge. You simply cannot manufacture a pass rush out of thin air. And the Bears' solution to this defensive end crisis? It is a massive, unprecedented gamble. It is a roll of the dice so completely out of left field, so structurally bizarre and mechanically fraught that absolutely no one in the league saw it coming. The front office has backed themselves into a corner, and their way out is going to turn heads for all the wrong reasons.
293 pounds. Speak that number out loud for a second. Think about the sheer physical mass of a human being carrying 293 pounds. That is the weight of Shamar Turner. And in a move born of pure, unadulterated panic, the Chicago Bears are planning to place a man of this incredible size on the outside edge to rush the passer. To understand exactly how absurd this is, you have to realize that the ideal modern edge rusher, the guys who violently bend the corner and terrorize tackles, usually weighs somewhere between 250 and 260 pounds. Putting a 293-pound Titan out wide, it defies the modern biomechanics of the NFL. It is a severe, almost laughable mismatch of physics.
Let's look at the absolute granular details of this Shamar Turner experiment. He wasn't even drafted as an edge rusher. He was drafted in the second round as an interior defensive tackle. In his 2025 sophomore campaign, he played a grand total of 5 games. He logged just 6 total tackles. And then a season-ending torn ACL against the Ravens in Week 8. This is the staggering reality we're dealing with. The Bears are relying on an injured, out-of-position, 293-pound sophomore coming off a devastating knee injury to save their pass rush. Let that string of adjectives really sit with you for a moment. It is the absolute dictionary definition of grasping at straws. Which leads us to a grave, season-defining question. Can a defensive coordinator teach fundamentals to a broken line before the season collapses entirely? Dennis Allen has publicly admitted his own tactical faults here. He openly stated that last year he focused way too much on grand defensive schemes and practically ignored the granular pass rushing techniques. We're talking about the absolute necessities: independent hand placement, ankle flexion to bend the corner, critical first-step explosion off the line of scrimmage. Now the clock is ticking incredibly loudly. He has to rebuild the absolute basics of attacking the quarterback from scratch, using a roster made of spare parts and broken pieces.
This is exactly the kind of deep, uncompromising analysis you will only find right here. You are watching NFL Nexus. If you want to understand the real game being played behind closed doors, you need to subscribe to the channel, like this explainer, and comment down below with your thoughts on this historic defensive disaster. Seriously, do you think Dennis Allen can fix this 293-pound edge experiment before opening day? Let me know down in the comments, because the front office is clearly out of answers.
Section 2. The offensive pivot. Protecting the franchise. Because while the defense decays into this makeshift experiment, there is a completely different, yet equally urgent narrative unfolding on the other side of the ball. The front office knows that if the defense can't stop anybody, their only hope of survival, their only hope of conquest, rests entirely on the shoulders of Caleb Williams. The paradigm is completely shifted. The team cannot rely on winning low-scoring slugfest anymore. They must give their young, highly touted quarterback the weapons necessary to survive an inevitable weekly shootout.
But right now, Caleb Williams is staring into a glaring void. Look at this wide receiver exodus. On one side, the devastating reality that DJ Moore was traded away, removing the undisputed alpha from the locker room. On the other, losing Olamide Zaccheaus in free agency to the Atlanta Falcons. The safety blankets are completely gone. The proven commodities have left the building. That is over 150 targets and nearly 1,500 receiving yards simply vanishing into thin air in a single offseason. It creates this chilling feeling of vulnerability around the young, franchise quarterback right when he needs stability the absolute most.
So the Bears front office is frantically replenishing the arsenal. They went out and signed a reliable free agent, Khalif Raymond. They spent a highly coveted 2026 third-round draft pick on Xavier Thomas, injecting some much-needed youth into the room. We know the top of the hierarchy is firmly locked in, right? Rome Udenza is your undisputed WR1, and Luther Burden III operates as your dynamic WR2. But beneath them, the depth chart just falls off a cliff. A brutal, high-stakes battle for the crucial WR3 spot is brewing at training camp. And it's no longer just a competition for snaps. It's a battle of pure survival to keep the offense afloat.
And then, head coach Ben Johnson stepped up to the podium and introduced the newest weapon with these exact words. From afar, I've been able to see the speed, the quickness. Certainly very intriguing. This quote reveals the front office's sudden, obsessive mandate. It is a non-negotiable directive. Caleb Williams must have unadulterated speed. Because of the defensive liabilities we just discussed, the opponent is going to absolutely dominate time of possession. When Caleb drops back, his time to throw will likely be under 2.5 seconds. He desperately needs players who can separate instantly, before that makeshift defensive line forces him into a chaotic shootout every single week.
Enter Scotty Miller. His journey to this exact moment plays out like a cinematic hero's arc, filled with grit and improbable triumphs. Trace this path meticulously with me. In 2016, he was a first-team All-MAC sensation at Bowling Green. In 2019, he fights his way into the league, drafted in the 6th round by Tampa Bay. By 2020, he reaches the absolute pinnacle as a Super Bowl LV champion, famously catching that infamous game-altering deep touchdown pass just seconds before halftime at Lambeau Field in the NFC Championship. After grinding through veteran stops in Atlanta and Pittsburgh, the year is 2026, and he has officially arrived at Halas Hall.
This isn't just your standard free agency signing. This is bringing a champion home. Scotty Miller is a local hero, a proud product of Barrington High School, right in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. He fundamentally understands the heartbeat of the city. He understands how to play through that biting, freezing wind coming off Lake Michigan in late December. And most importantly, he brings much-needed, undisputed Super Bowl DNA to a rebuilding franchise that desperately needs a veteran who remembers what ascending to the mountaintop actually looks like.
If we deeply dissect the micro details of a signing, we see the strategic brilliance hidden underneath the surface. This isn't just a nostalgic depth piece. Miller is being reunited with wide receivers coach Antoine Randall L. This is rekindling that exact Super Bowl LV winning chemistry they shared in Tampa Bay, where Randall L. brilliantly utilized Miller as a lethal field stretcher, operating dynamically from the slot. Add in his vital special team stability as an experienced punt and kick return specialist and his calming veteran presence in a highly volatile young locker room. On paper, it looks like the perfect strategic chess move. But we gotta pull back the curtain and inject a heavy dose of harsh reality here. Look at this production drop. In his 2020 Super Bowl peak, Miller logged 33 vital receptions. But flash forward to his recent 2025 season, an anemic 9 receptions for just 62 total yards. He hasn't eclipsed double-digit catches in a season since 2023. So despite the beautiful cinematic local hero narrative that the front office really wants to sell us, relying on an aging receiver whose production has plummeted to less than 10 catches a year is a blinding, glowing red flag for an offense in dire need of a reliable WR3.
And so this incredibly tense question just hangs in the cold air over Chicago. Is championship experience enough to compensate for drastically fading production? When the game is on the line in the fourth quarter, Caleb Williams can't throw a pass to a Super Bowl ring. He needs a receiver who can physically beat his man off the line of scrimmage. Nostalgia simply doesn't move the chains on a crucial 3rd and long. We are tying the perilous defensive gambles with these hopeful, romanticized offensive band-aids into one cohesive, incredibly high-stakes picture that will ultimately define the year.
If you are a hardcore fan who thrives on the deepest, most cinematic breakdowns on the internet, you belong here with us. Support the channel by becoming a channel member today. Your membership is absolutely crucial. It allows us to keep peeling back the layers of the NFL, exposing the tactical truths and microscopic details that the mainstream media completely ignores in favor of quick headlines. Take the next step in your football education and join the inner circle of NFL Nexus right now. Because the margin for error is officially 0. We have reached the razor's edge. The Chicago Bears are walking a terrifyingly thin tightrope without a safety net to catch them. On one side, they are frantically forcing 293-pound surgically repaired defensive tackles out to the edge in a wildly desperate bid to replace a $48 million mistake. Let the sheer weight of those decisions sink in. And on the other side, they are just praying that an aging local hero can magically rediscover his Super Bowl form to protect their franchise quarterback from a relentless onslaught.
Which leads us staring at the ultimate, agonizing question as the regular season rapidly approaches. Are we watching the painful, necessary birth of a modern NFL dynasty forged in the fires of adversity, or are we simply witnessing a front office painting a masterpiece of disaster? Thank you for exploring this with me on NFL Nexus. I'll see you in the next explainer.